Yes, I should.
We're screaming.
And I don't even know.
I actually saw her roll it.
Oh, my God. Not even much about it. So anyway,
Yeah, she does.
Not gonna say, but. Sarah's not sure she likes to go anywhere, but if they don't, then they'll come along. Yeah, so we're doing organization.
How many are considered southern states? Florida, Georgia? You go over to Mississippi.
Okay.
You get Arkansas in there. I was gonna say, Georgia doesn't have organization. It's an Indian state, are we the only state?
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. You get to teach everybody else how. So what do you target?
Do we have an Instagram?
We do.
Do we have a Twitter?
What?
Do we have a Twitter? No.
We do.
Okay.
We have all of these.
Oh, you-
Oh my gosh. You are lying.
So you prep by bargaining with people.
Yeah, and yeah, so we meet. It's like, hey, and so we bargain our own contract.
Oh,
And so we were we've had the whole time. So we separate here.
So your whole contract is done.
We can actually. You cover it down.
And you got what you wanted in the
Oh, absolutely.
So when you're in Georgia, marketing, how does that work? They just say, hey, we really like it if you pay this.
Okay. Role to see if he can YouTube streaming for us. And they can do it out while we're let me. Because I don't have school. And they block.
Most of the
I
time,
took
it's
it on YouTube when I was which I used to be able to do no problem.
pretty much stays the same.
But he just said, yeah, that unfortunately I'm marked as a guest. So that's why I'm able to use YouTube.
Right.
Oh. So anyway, we're gonna do simultaneous. I'm gonna have the Facebook stream on there and I'm gonna try YouTube and see if we can improve the quality. That's what I said. They just flash.
So there, it's so
Now that the audio receiving
that you would even need.
But they talk about tears and tell us how you love the teachers and how they need to. But you want them to leave their families on a Wednesday night and come and sit with their teachers.
Well, you know, all of the things that we represent are engaged.
Yeah.
With somebody on your team and then turning around and arguing with them.
Yeah. Holy cow. How cute, Judy. Oh, they all said.
Am I on this?
So your team, marketing team, just.
Am I on this since Ken's not here?
3 years, 4 years, 4 years.
Yeah, did we talk about? You know, but I watched what you did last time. You kind of, yeah.
We want the format, I can email you.
Oh, there's a format?
Well, not really, but I can give you her last notes so that
Yeah,
you
give
can
me
see
your
what
last
she
notes, I'll take a look at it and I'll give it a try. We'll just talk this enough to experience building.
It's really just as much as you can get.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
feel like she was just struggling. I gotta find some shorthand for everybody.
I'll send you her last notes.
Okay.
Yeah, I might keep her boogery cells to myself.
I think I'm gonna do the picture in PowerPoint, like the
Very.
my face. I think it's better. It was worth a shot.
Oh, I really like the upfront weatherman look though.
I don't know. The lighting and the.
If you can fix the lighting and the audio, you'd be set.
Yeah.
Okay, where are
And what it did to the screen time, pixelation.
YouTube Live? How to chat to my viewers?
Oh, you saw it happen.
I really want to stop and look at these. Yeah. desire to keep going for any reasons other than gas. Hey, Justin, are you busy working on things right now?
I'm just sending them,
I have no
Are you trying to do things?
Yeah, I got a YouTube stream now. Today is a test out. I'm actually gonna send you a link to your phone a little bit. I'm gonna want you to get on it and I want to talk nonsense.
Okay, once I head out.
Okay.
So
like a little bit of
for
discount rate.
example, at my middle school, the winter guard zone, we don't have a winter guard zone if they have. We don't have the head cheer. So a lot of the things that there's no way to.
Feeling good?
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do notes. I'm gonna baby this. I'm gonna test it out on a couple people, and then if this goes well tonight, we're gonna move this to the regular thing next week.
Yeah, that would be
We
awesome.
can still probably do both at the same time. I'll get another omnidirectional. We'll run 2 of them. This will be a much better, easier place to save all our stuff in one spot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, it's just with them blocking me and I'm so frustrated. And of course, they are not helpful.
The only thing I'm worried about is I'll run out of battery at some point later.
I want another one soon, not yet, but soon.
Oh yeah, my kids just can't wait. Last week she stuck one of them in the eye.
There we go.
All right, let's see.
No.
Oh goodness.
Just because cable make me nervous. Yes.
At the Globe, I suspect. I want to hear your whole story later.
Oh no, it'll get us in trouble. Actually, I had a lot of fun till I had to grow up.
It would be more than.
I'm gonna move you left.
Oh, good fine.
Sneak this story. The reason I get.
See, I'm the opposite of every other old person you know. I'm nearsighted.
Right.
So I keep taking them off so I can see here, and my husband has to put his on to see here, and take them off to see there, and yeah. Hey, Phyllis. Justin.
What?
Phyllis.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not.
That was very.
Oh, you're in charge of notes?
Yes, the gentleman height.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many notes we're running on the slide because you just sent me the example. I haven't opened my email yet. Is
Sorry.
it that big an important thing?
I don't have an answer to that. He sent that to me a couple times, but I type everything.
Oh, well, I'm gonna type this as I go. I'm just gonna have 2 windows.
I'm good.
She is so adorable. Megan. Oh. Thank you.
I need that box cover and that pile of papers. You've done so much, basically labor saved because of you.
You still owe me.
I'm on it. I'm absolutely on it. I just gotta get a day when I'm not doing something.
I'm just, you know that? He said, you told him that the chicken was happening.
Yeah.
And that goes anywhere in this district.
Okay.
Did you get your,
Okay.
I can tell you which
Where is it?
every supplement that's available in the event of medicine. But it doesn't mean that it's.
Where did I write everyone's name? I wrote everyone's name out very specific.
It's doing that thing again where it won't let me be landscape.
Hello. Are you the welcoming committee? Hi.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you queen.
The candy lady.
Candy ladies.
Are you watching our podcast stuff?
Okay.
Even though it's not.
Oh, my biology teacher. I want to really know.
Weber's law.
No,
Really,
no.
That's literally what it's called.
Is it really?
Yeah. The difference is by percentage now. Number of feet. They're far enough back. Unfortunately, what it used to be. You know,
Highly effective
Is it
teacher.
with one big or two? I usually want to get prepared for the growth.
Are we on? All right. All right, welcome. I can start. We have a counter for the transfer
Okay.
MOU.
Sure.
So I figured we'd start with the counter.
Okay.
And according to you, you do not have a counter tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
But I have new stuff.
You have new articles, not new MOU.
No,
All right, so it makes sense to start with the transfer counter.
absolutely, whatever you would like.
All right, so what we did with the transfer MOU, we signed off on the opening of a new school, I last week.
Yes, and can I hand
Oh,
this
yeah.
to you? We actually cleaned it up.
Okay.
I will tell you that there is a correction on there, so I signed it with today's date. And the correction is that it is one pre-veterinary, one biomedical, and one global. Remember, we were saying it was two, that it was the same thing, pets, people.
Got it.
Okay. The academy is called pre-veterinary and biomedical sciences, but you need two different teachers.
Understood.
And learn something.
You, and then. Jen, this is enough.
Okay.
Um,
You want to hold on for a
Morgan,
minute?
if Morgan could just hold it for now.
Okay.
All right, so that was the I MOU.
Yes.
All right, so what we did was we took the transfer MOU, we put it side by side with last year's. We did identify some differences. So what I'm going to pass over to you is sort of a cleaned up version. The way I approached this, or the team approached this, was to, if there was something omitted from last year to this year, and it's everybody's intent to keep it moving forward, we just put it in red,
Okay.
as if it doesn't matter. You're proposing it, we're proposing
Sure.
it, it's new language.
Right.
And then if it was intentionally omitted, as if to remove that requirement or whatever it was, we added it and struck through it, just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
So let me pass that to you, and then we can talk through it. So if I could, let me jump to the substantive part,
Okay.
and then we'll backtrack and go through.
Okay.
All right, so we can have our substantive discussion up front. Basically, the team deliberated and we talked through a lot of different scenarios. And the main thing that we settled on was that it seemed the date was, we looked at different dates and what would work for you. And basically, we left the date the same, and we would like to leave that date the same, February 18th, in exchange for something that we want. And we think that they're related, But ultimately, the substantive change that we're proposing is that we remove the requirement that we get principal approval or signature on the form. So that would have to change in the MOU as well, so we struck through it, but then we made the change on the form. There was also an addition to the form of an associate superintendent signature. And so we weren't exactly sure of the intended process there. I mean, it's going to the HR office ultimately. So I don't know if we're looking to get a signature and then complete the form and then send it in again. We're unsure. It's confusing. But at the end of the day, we just want the teacher to be able to fill the form out and send it to Human Resources by 5 o'clock on February 18th. And I mean, they don't need to go to their current principal and get approval. I mean, if we're all on the same page that we want people to be where they want to be, where they're happy, then let's get rid of that requirement. So we think that addresses our concern without changing the date, which seems very important to you. So, all right.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go through some of the, I don't want to just end there.
Sure.
That's the substantive part. Do
Right.
you want to have questions or concerns about the substantive part?
I understand. It's not going through the principal.
Right,
You'll agree to our dates.
correct.
Okay. Got it.
There's the exchange. Okay, so there was some language about due to the shortage of teachers in the introduction to this. That's new language. We aren't sure why.
Okay.
So we struck through it, but if you want to talk, we can talk. I'm not sure that was needed, but.
Okay.
Under eligibility, number 4, B was omitted, so I added in B and then struck through it as if it was intended to be omitted. And so what we did was we just captured that language with in red. Under number 4, we added red language that captured what was being said in A. Okay. And then under ineligible, we feel like the current school year is good enough. I don't know, if we want to have a deliberation over that, but we feel that the current school year is good enough. Last year, it was under ineligible. It didn't specify a school year. It just ended with performance concerns, period. So if you're looking for clarification,
Right.
or you want to put a school year on it, and you think that the current year is reasonable. Because that would be, it's February where they're turning in this form, right? So they haven't had any performance concerns from August to February. Makes sense to me. Under required steps for voluntary consideration, on the form, number 5 was omitted, which was a box check to say that the priority doesn't matter. I'll take any of the 4. Sorry, it's not omitted from the form, it was omitted from the language. Sorry, only from the language, under required steps number 2, so we added it there because it is on the form. All right, moving on to number 7. I'm working through 3 documents here, so bear with me. Last year's, this year's, and the counter. So we think that was new language in your proposal, so we just made it red as if that was what you were proposing, and we accept it. So number 7, you with me?
I am. So the prior one did not have a.
The prior one
year.
did not have a year.
Okay.
It only had dates, not a
Okay.
year.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Let's keep going. Vacancies, number 5, this is where I got confused. Number 5 was omitted under vacancies. So you see in 3 and 4, the bold, italicized, underline. All we did was change the formatting of that. That's to not confuse people as to what's new language and what's not. That's
Right.
existing language, been agreed to.
Okay.
Number 5, employees. I understand that you want it for effect, for emphasis. We get that, but I don't think it's worth the trade-off. It confuses people. Number 5, employees who desire to transfer to III must follow the procedures outlined in that MOU. We did have language last year, of course, referred to Triple H and the other one. Right? Okay. So then what we did was we cleaned up under note, if an instructional employee has been assigned to your school for less than 2 years. So this is on the form, and this is what I led with, the substantive counter, is to omit that language. So we struck through that requirement that we have to get a principal signature. The timelines, what we did was we already had February 18th as a timeline, and then we had this like centered, bolded phrase that seemed repetitive. So we captured that intent in the timeline for February 18th. So basically, our counter says under timelines, February 18th, completed transfer form and required documents must be received by interoffice mail, scanned and sent by email, or dropped off at Human Resources. Attention Kathy Hutchins by 5 p.m. So in other words, we just made it a timeline note instead of a separate note, if that makes sense. No substantive change. And by the way, we think that it said can be sent, and we're saying it must be received. We just think that's clear, and that's probably your intent, right? You want it in her office by 5 p.m.
Correct.
Right, not I sent it.
Right.
Sure, right? Okay. We all know the drill. Under July 1st, we can have a discussion, but that new language impacts beyond the classroom. That's new language that wasn't in last year's, that we don't quite, and maybe we just, because it wasn't explained to us, we don't feel that we need that. So if impacts beyond the classroom was in last year's, but the word recommendation was not. So I think what we're trying to say is that people who, it's not a promotion, but if an instructional person gets a job as a dean, a teacher becomes a dean,
Correct.
then this doesn't apply.
Right. Correct.
So I don't know if we have to make it any clearer, but we believe that it's clear. How do we do it?
You did great.
All right.
Justin, I did want to point out that we added this.
We did, thank you.
You said that
That
I
was
wasn't quite sure. Because you guys, I was not the call.
an error of the head, I'm sorry. February 18th, under timelines, instructional employees will receive verification that their early transfer form has been received in Human Resources by email. That was already in there. We added within 1 week. Is that reasonable? Is that feasible through office? To confirm that you have my form within a week?
A week after February 18th.
We
Is that
were,
what
we
you're
were,
referring to?
let's
Or
see.
as you receive them, a week after you receive them, there's two different
What's that?
definitions. I would say by email no later than February, after a week after the 18th. We are accustomed to, as we receive them, we let them know we received your application. I don't want to wait until after the 18th.
No, that was our intent,
Yeah.
was that like, so we know that you have our form, we want to know within a week so that we
Yeah,
can get it.
if I turn it in February 2nd,
Right.
can I know by February 9th that you have it?
Yeah, as we receive them, we send you an email, let you know it's been received.
Let us work on, we'll work on this.
I realized that where we put it would imply, instructional employees will receive verification that their early transfer form has been received in Human Resources by email within 1 week. Yeah, our intention was within 1 week of you receiving, not within 1 week of February 8th.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Just want to talk about this. That's all.
The form, I believe it is.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, we covered it. Ultimately, we think this makes it feasible for the teacher to feel comfortable doing both
Right.
at the same
Right,
time.
I get that.
So that's where we're coming from.
Okay.
All right, that's transfer counter. Do you want to just alternate?
Sure.
I have 2 more things.
Okay.
But
Okay, so what I did tonight was, so first let me talk about why I'm not countering.
Sure.
Okay, so not countering right now. We're holding on to Article 7. We'll work through that as we work through the contract. I did not bring language to respond to the substitute MOU, but that doesn't mean that it's tabled or it's not coming. I have my payroll supervisors start to reach out to some other counties to find out how do they track it. Is there a way in SunGuard that we can do it with a time card? How do principals confirm it? And so this kind of opened up kind of a whole world. We want to make sure that internally we know how to track this before we pass something across and people start doing it and then they expect their payment and we can't do it. So I have a meeting on Monday with a good team. We'll get together. We'll work on the research. We'll put our heads together because you have two different circumstances here. You have your middle school and your high schools where it's just giving up the planning period. And then you have your elementary where we're splitting the class. Again, trying to make sure that we address both appropriately. So anyways, that's just to say that fingers crossed that I will bring something back on the 17th, but I just needed more time.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so the articles I'm bringing today really are articles that I was hoping, again, there's a lot of times those articles where there are no changes or there just really isn't a lot that needs to be adjusted. And so the three that I'm bringing you today, I don't have any changes with the exception in one section where there's actually date change. So
Okay.
This is the preamble.
We don't need to read it. We'll look at it.
Yes. Since I didn't make any changes,
There's no reason to read it. I think that's your one, huh? That's your first one.
Do you want me to just
Give
do
me
all
your
three?
softball.
Do you want me to just do all three? Okay. I'm good with that. Okay, so the next one is recommendation. This is the one that states who's in the bargaining unit, who is the contract covering. And so again, I did not make any changes to this. And then the last one I have for tonight is Article 18, and this is the term of the agreement. So this is the article that talks about that it's a 3-year agreement. So I did actually change the dates. So if you look in A, the date is now going from June 30th of 2020. Since we are in 2021, it goes to 2024. But this is the language that states that we go into a full book every 3 years. And then each subsequent year that we open up compensation, insurance, and each group could bring 2 articles. And then if we ever have a mutual time in which we have to come together, obviously COVID threw us for the loop, we have to come together quite a bit. That's what it allows for. But truly, the only thing I changed was to 2020. All right, that's it for me.
Okay. For SJEA, St. John's Virtual School, we are going to, this has been an MOU for several years now. I don't know how many.
A long time.
4, 5, 6?
A long time.
Something like
A
that.
long time.
All right, so we're going to start with, by the way, I have Cherie here. If you see me have to turn around for information, this is not a world I live in.
Yes, me too. So
Right.
Ryan.
Ryan is there for you.
Skin is here, the principal, so same thing.
Right. So thank you for being here, Ryan. Thank you, Cherie, for coming. And hopefully we can work through this in one night. I'm going to pass it across. The first thing that you'll notice is that it's not an MOU.
Okay.
Article 23. Article 22, for frame of reference, is FCTC. So it makes sense that our special school would be a new article. Six is good, right?
That's fine.
Okay, yes, sorry. You can get your back. I wanted her to have the
Okay.
All right. So let me give you the overview,
Right.
context. We were asking for 4 things in this, what would be new article. Number 1, that it be in the contract. You'll also notice that I left off at the top. I left off XXII, and I added the I in 10, so I will correct it, but this would be 23. All right, number 2,
Okay.
that we're asking for is, we've been working with student load ranges. We're gonna ask for a max load, but we're gonna be on the high end of that, so hopefully be enticing to management. Number 3, we're gonna propose a way to pay for overages, if there are any. There are different kinds of overages in virtual school. And we're gonna propose that we don't need the committee anymore, because we have worked through the majority of the birth of SJEA through, we're at the table all the time with this every year. So now it'll be an article, we don't need the committee anymore. So we can talk about that if you want, but we think that the time that the committee has run its course, it's done what it was supposed to do. So, okay. Let's start with number 1, virtual full-time. We had Blackboard Collaborate before, now there's Zoom. Big change. Number 4, like I said, this is one of the substantive asks here. The maximum student load for core and elective classes has been arranged. And so you see there in red what we're proposing as maximum student loads. So instead of 150 to 200, we're just saying 200, right? And so on and so forth. If there is overage, we can turn the page. And still under number 5, if the teachers do have the option of agreeing to exceed their maximum student load. This is akin to a teacher agreeing to teach a 7th period in the secondary world. So if there's a need and the teacher's good with it, then it doesn't prevent that process from happening. So if we go into number 6, we are talking here about situations where the teacher is temporary teacher of record. Somebody goes out on maternity leave, or somebody, whatever the reason is. Okay, so a current full-time teacher who is assigned additional students becomes the temporary teacher of record above the maximum student load identified in 4 will be compensated as follows. We have existing language, so what we're going to submit to you under B is that we get rid of the tier and go with the middle one, 125, instead of the 3 tiers, and multiply it by a percentage that that student completes while that teacher is the temporary teacher of record. So if they teach 50%, or if they get 50% done under me, then I would, and I'm over. Remember, this is if you're over the max load, right?
Correct.
Only if you're over the max load. So then I would get half of 125, because the kid did 50% under me. Okay.
So
What questions so far? Go ahead.
I'm going to ask you the common question.
Yeah.
Cost. Do we know the cost differential between what's being paid now and
What's being paid now is that they look at the course and then they look at the tier.
Right.
And then, so you see the only thing in red there is that we're going with the middle tier. Everything else is happening now.
Correct. Correct. So I'm just asking about the $125 per student. Do we know if that's going to increase the cost or lower the cost? Or
I would think that it would be, I don't know the distribution of the tiers. I don't know, so I can't answer. I would think that given a large enough sample size that it would be a negligible difference, but. Yes, does she have her hand up? Sheree.
I would say it would increase the cost. I don't think it would be a significant difference. again, mostly what we're talking about in number 6 is maternity leave. And we don't have teachers go out on maternity leave every year, but when we do, we would like to get rid of the tiers because we don't want our teachers being paid differently because they're not paid differently for teaching different classes than they're in our classroom.
Yeah, what she said. So. All right, and that's, again, only if they go over. If there's room under my max cap, I can just take the student on.
Then you teach,
Right.
then you just take on those students until you get to your max.
Right.
load.
And SJEA has gone from, if I remember right, it was 14.5 full-time teachers when they first went to the full-time, and now it's at 36.
30,
We're
whatever.
at 12.6, it's about 42 right now.
42, so
Yeah.
it's grown quite a bit. Yeah. Okay, number 7 would be that would be some new language. So this is for overages that happen in number 4 that are from beginning to end. Okay, so instead of giving me 200 students, you give me 201 to start with, right? So now what would we do with that? Let's walk through it. So teacher over the amount. So again, this is analogous to what we believe is something like a 7th period supplement. So for secondary teachers, on the last day of each semester, administration will pull the data to reflect all completions for the semester. Compensation will be calculated at 125 for completion because we're proposing that we get rid of the tiers, right? For example, teacher A teaches all elective courses. The teacher has 270 completions for the semester. Take the completions, subtract the maximum caseload. That brings you down to 20. And 20 times 125 would be $2,500. Again, similar to what we pay. We pay $3,000 a semester for a 7th period supplement. So the teacher would be paid the additional $2,500 for the semester. They're essentially they have that extra class. So, elementary teachers, on the last day of each semester, administration will pull the data. Compensation will be calculated based on $50 multiplied times the number of student completions. The reason for that is because they teach multiple, what would you call this, Sharia? They teach multiple subjects.
Multiple subjects to the same student.
Multiple subjects to the same student. So we have an example in number 2. 42 students. Maximum load for elementary teachers is 35. The total number of students, and subtract the maximum number of students allowed, come up with 7. 7 times 4 subjects that they teach is 35 completions. 35 times 50 would be 1750. Again, similar to being paid to teach an extra class. It's not exactly analogous, but it's the same principle. Any questions about number 7?
No, can you go back and review number 4? Can we go down each of the?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just so that I can.
Before we only have one new one. So core and elective mix, and I should point out, we're proposing that it include foreign language, that we put them in there at a max of 225. They have longer DBAs, which is a discussion-based assessment. So to treat them like an elective it's pretty unfair from what I understand. So we'll put them in, instead of making them core, we'll make them a core and elective mix. And have a category there for 225. So that's where we'd like the foreign language to fall. You asked me to go back here, so let me
Yes, please.
answer your questions. Go ahead.
So I would just want you to run through them again so that you can pull out specifically kind of the changes. So you now have a core and elective mix that's going to include foreign language. We have the electives only. Now we have elementary, that's new, right? Because it was based on load divided by kind of the number of preps. Am I saying that right? Preps or courses?
They usually have 5 preps. Yes.
And elementary virtual school is fairly new, right?
Well, up until last year, we had 1.6.
COVID changed
teachers.
it.
Correct? Yes, we had 1.6 teachers until the beginning of last year, and now we have 14.
So it's a big difference. So we have to include them in this somehow.
Yes.
Okay. So you have two different comments here. One is elementary at 35 students, and then the next one is a range.
And the reason for that is,
And the reason for that is that would be, you know, that would be an administrative decision. Looking at kindergarten through 2, we want to put less people and, you know, less children in those courses. And again, that's just kind of a, you know, 22 on the low end, 35 on the high end. Because I didn't want to make it too restrictive by breaking it down by K through 2 and 3 through 5.
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
12 credits.
All right, okay, got it.
All right, so we need to go from, that was number 7. So number 7 is what happens if we go over the student load right from the get-go, right? Not temporarily, because someone's on maternity leave. All right, so we want to address the number 8 is, let's see. So old number 6. Let me get my notes together here.
So,
Old number 7
Yes.
is now number 8.
right,
Old number 7 is now number 8.
Mhm.
So full-time teachers will let the SJEA principal or assistant principal, this reflects what
the administration.
what it's grown to.
Right,
To know of their intent to participate in the summer program by February 1st of the current school year. So substantively, this stays the same. We just update the terminology.
Okay.
Now, we have a new number 9, which was the committee, which becomes 10, which gets struck through, but you can follow that. So the new number 9 would be the summer credit recovery will use the district-approved platform, currently it's Apex, to allow students within SJCSD to recover credits. Teachers will be paid, this is summer school, teachers will be paid $125 for completion. That, again, we're suggesting that we get rid of the tiers and go with the middle one. Payment for summer credit recovery will be paid in the second paycheck in August or earlier.
okay, and
Yeah,
we don't know what the difference in the cost is, correct? So this is why I'm just kind of asking,
you tell me.
there's some things I'm gonna have to calculate out, and I don't know that I'm gonna be able to do that today.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
I
and I'll
understand
explain
that.
why in a
And-
second, okay,
and I think Ryan has a lot of insight.
yes, okay.
So we really have, there's 3 components to that. What happens when a teacher becomes the temporary teacher of record?
Right.
What happens when the teacher is over from the beginning to the end? And then what happens in the summer? So those are the 3 things. And then on the last page, the only suggested change would be for virtual school, virtual second job teachers, so PTAN, right? Part-time is needed. That's the code, am I right? Okay, so PTAN at a rate of 125 for completion, because we're suggesting get rid of the tier. So if we're going to do that, we should do that for everybody. And I skipped over it, but I already gave you a heads up that we would suggest abolishing the committee and having it as an article in the contract, and just be negotiated when there are changes needed.
So, like you, I'm more of a ask, so I know
Yeah,
cost,
sure.
cost is always my focus, but,
Yeah.
Wayne, Dawn, Ryan, any questions for Justin at this point?
I have one. So when you're polling at the end of the semester next due on February, are you also polling on the last day of school as well?
Yes, sir,
Yeah,
that
you
needs to be added.
You would have to, yeah, in order to make this work. Yeah, that would only indicate the first semester, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
How do you capture the second semester?
And are you saying that it's based on actual completions? Or, so if a student's so they're over, so they're supposed to be 200, and there's 10 students, but those 10 students have not finished, are you paid for those students as well?
I believe the answer is no.
The answer is no.
So it's completions only,
Yeah.
completions only, completions only.
They gotta
And
finish.
Ryan is correct, we do need to add on this last day, second semester, also to be paid at
So that would be, you're all right with that, that's clearly just an
Yes.
oversight.
And that's at the end of A and at the end of B2,
Under 6,
7?
Can I speak?
it's under
now?
7. Go ahead, Sheree.
Okay, so we did say on the last day of each semester.
It does
For
say
7,
that.
First one, it does say the last day of each semester, administration will pull data to reflect. And what we didn't put in there, the teacher would be paid additional for the semester, be paid by the end of the second paycheck in February. And I believe that would follow through the second paycheck in June, then for semester 2. And that was just an example I was given in the last paragraph of, how that would be paid. But we probably do need to put in there second paycheck in February for semester 1, second paycheck in June for semester 2.
Anybody else back there? Okay, Dawn? Okay, all right, we'll definitely.
Okay.
I may have more questions, so we'll
I
come
get
back
it,
out.
I get it.
Okay.
We've spent a lot of time with Sheree
Yeah.
trying to learn this.
Good work.
All right, transfer, virtual school. All right. Let's see how this one goes.
Okay. Is it 11 or 2?
11.
Okay. You put 1-1 in you put 11, but didn't tell me what it was, and I thought, okay, is he doing 11?
Ah, that's good.
Oh.
Did that to
I was trying
keep you
to,
guessing.
yes, it's
You could have
psychology.
asked.
it
You
all.
could have asked.
I know, I was okay. We're making progress. that's
Article
good.
11, I'll stay to Roman numerals if you want. So Article 11 is leave provisions.
Okay.
All right, we do not propose any changes to page 1.
Okay.
Page 2, leave with pay. So the leave article is basically split into 2 parts, leave with pay and leave without pay.
Correct.
We're working in the leave with pay section. Our proposal is. We believe that if the following leaves are, if the person meets the criteria, then they shall be granted. So we think that the word may has been in there, but the word shall is the word that should be in there. We can talk through that, but if they meet the criteria for these things that are already in there and the things that we proposed, then it shall be granted. It makes sense. All right. The Jewish holiday is recognized in here. We would like to broaden that to religious observance. We have other religions to represent as well. And as you know, our school calendar allows for time off around the 2 major Christian holidays, Christmas and Easter. And we've been acknowledging the Jewish holidays in the contract, but we also need to acknowledge the other religious holidays. We don't necessarily need to list them because we came up with a solution to that rather than listing them all. So a religious observance, if we want to skip ahead to the next page, number 6, and just hold it, because I know you're wondering what parental leave is. Don't get ahead of me.
No, I was actually looking at religious observance.
Okay,
I was
all
paying
right,
attention,
all
I was all in the class.
Religious observance, so number 6, instead of saying Jewish holiday, would say religious observance and would include the Jewish holidays, of course. But we're excluding a lot of people. We need to be more inclusive in this particular section. So the new language would say that professional employees of any faith who are scheduled to work on religious holidays may request in writing and shall be granted leave. So there's where we got the shall from. See what I'm saying? It makes sense that it would be in the in introduction, because it's here, it already was. And we're saying up to 2 days per school year.
Sorry.
Up to 2 days per school year, because we had Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur identified. So now in the Muslim faith or in the Hindu faith, the employee could choose which 2 they want to observe, if any. And so they shall be granted that leave. Okay. I think it's the right thing to do, quite frankly. All right. So if you go back to the previous page, you'll see a new bullet point for parental leave. And again, I'm going to leave you hanging. Come back to it in a minute. So on page 4, we would like to address bereavement leave before we get anywhere into some other sort of paid leave. So number 7, which was erroneously listed as number 1. It happens in the contract. We both do it. So now it would be number 7, bereavement leave. So we're suggesting that we strike through that language that has been in effect. And here's the line of reasoning. Quite frankly, here's what happens now. If a death in the immediate family occurs and the person is out of leave, they get 1 day. That's what the existing contract does. We just think that needs a little bit more. It needs some strengthening. It's weak language from our perspective.
So what is your next
Forward
page?
1 page from where you are. No.
So I go to 7 to leave without pay.
1 more, right there.
Right there.
It's above parental leave.
And then,
Okay.
So the strike through is the old bereavement
it
language?
might be out of order, Kathy.
Okay.
No,
No, it's not, okay.
I think it was just stuff.
Okay. Leave without pay.
Right there.
Is that your 4th page?
This is my 3rd page.
Is that-
With me, because there's a staple next to it. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Kathy.
No, that's,
So now we're on the 4th page.
yes, we are on the 4th page. I'm with you.
And it's not paginated, so we're on the 4th page.
Okay.
And so the strike through is old bereavement language. What is currently in the contract, we are suggesting that we replace it. It is, from labor's perspective, it's weak language. If I'm out of leave days and I have a death in my immediate family, I'm granted 1 bereavement day. It's quite frankly, it's just not good enough. You know, we need to do something better, I think, for employees. So let's walk through our proposal. We struck through and wrote new language. By the way, we looked at a lot of contracts, okay? A lot of contracts, and we pieced together some language that this is not out of left field by any means. We looked through a lot, dozens is the answer, dozens. And we pulled the ones that have bereavement leave that we could consider proposing, and we amalgamated them into this, okay? So here we go. Any employee who suffers the death of an immediate family member shall be granted bereavement leave. Any employee who experiences a miscarriage of their child shall also be granted bereavement leave. Bereavement leave shall be granted in the following manner. We have 2 different categories here. The funeral is held within 250 miles of the employee's home. The employee shall be allowed to utilize a maximum of 4 days of bereavement leave. So this is major change here. It's not just from 1 to 4. It's, I don't have to be out of leave to use this. There's a death in the immediate family. We're not talking, right? We're only talking immediate family. We suggest that the employee be allowed to take 4 days, up to 4 days of bereavement leave. If the funeral is held more than 250 miles away, 5 days. Now we have to define what an immediate, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to let you keep going because the question is going to be answered as you go through.
Okay. We have to define what an immediate family member is, so that's what C does. For the purposes of bereavement leave, an immediate family member shall be defined as spouse, domestic cohabitant, child, stepchild, grandchild, mother, father, sister, brother, parents of domestic cohabitant, mother-in-law, father-in-law, grandmother, grandfather, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, domestic cohabitant sibling, grandparents of the employee's spouse, grandparents of the employee's domestic cohabitant, any other relative or member of the employee's household. Proof of relationship to the deceased may be required. The district may require proof of death within 30 days of bereavement leave. After bereavement leave is taken, a copy of the newspaper or online obituary or the funeral card program for the deceased are acceptable forms, are acceptable examples of proof of death. Example, yes. Okay. These days will not be charged against the employee's sick leave or personal leave, and they are non-accruable. So you don't get 8 after 2 years, you don't use it. It's just 4 per year. Employees will not be paid bereavement leave for days not scheduled to work. So if it
So
coincides
it's-
with a weekend or something.
Right. So it's per year, not per incident.
Per year, not per incident. That's correct.
And then, I mean, you have in here any other relative,
In the household.
any other relative in the household. So not second cousin.
Right.
Okay.
Let's be honest, if you're acceptable to any of this, I would expect you to counter C, you know what I mean? We need to, that's the best language from our
Correct.
perspective.
I just wanted to, okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions about bereavement?
Okay. So the funeral is 250 miles away, so I would assume there would have to be some kind of documentation so that we would know
Sure.
how far. Okay. 5, if it's more than that. No, okay, I'm good.
All right. 8.
Okay.
This is a new, that was a replacement to bereavement leave. Number 8 is new, something called paid parental leave. Let's go through it. Let me give you my talking points first.
Okay.
This is a recruitment and retention tool. We hope you see it that way. This, while we found bereavement language in other contracts throughout the state, you're not going to find parental leave. You would be the first. And I say that because it's an opportunity. We have a recruitment and retention problem. Here's something that would sound pretty good to a young teacher who's planning to start a family. So I would say, think about taking pride in being the leader here and look at this as a perk that nobody else has. All right, number 8. An employee shall be granted a parental leave not to exceed 1 year. Now, this is not paid, that's a leave of absence, okay? You're not paying somebody for it. When the employee becomes a biological parent or a child is placed in the employee's home pending adoption, or the employee otherwise has significant care responsibilities for a newborn, a newly adopted child, or a child received into licensed foster home, or any other situation in which an employee, domestic cohabitant, or spouse becomes a legal guardian. Okay, so that's granted, it's not paid. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's granted, not paid. The next paragraph, an employee shall be provided up to 6 weeks of paid parental leave for the birth or adoption of a son or the placement of a child in the foster care of the employee. Employees may also use their accrued sick leave, unpaid leave, or a combination of paid and unpaid leave, so long as the total parental leave period, including the paid parental leave, does not exceed 1 year. So you can't run it all the way out, as referenced in the child rearing leave in the leave without pay section below, part B, the existing part of the contract. So for those trying to follow, what happens now? Somebody has a baby. What happens? We all in this room know what happens, right? You run your leave out, and then you go on FMLA. unpaid.
You're on FMLA the whole time.
You're on, okay, but you can get paid if you run out your leave, right? So this is a substantial change to that. This would be a substantial change to the existing way of doing business.
Okay, so, but, I don't know what I need to ask, but I'm trying to process it in my head. Okay. So, well, I'm just gonna use to have a baby, but I
Sure.
know that all the criteria, all the different circumstances, okay? So I have a baby. So is it that the first 6 weeks are paid by the district? I'm not touching my leave at that point?
Correct.
Because you put in here, employees may also use their accrued sick leave, unpaid leave, or combination. But that doesn't apply to this sentence of the first 6 weeks, correct?
Well, the offer sheet.
I mean, am I using my sick leave first, and then if it doesn't get me to 6 weeks, you're
It's
paying
not
the
specified,
difference?
our language is specifically not specified, so that you could use a combination. Different employees may want to go about this differently. Different employees might want to take 6 weeks paid, keep their leave for potential when they come back to work, their child. is
Yeah,
sick,
why would
keep
I
that
use
paid.
my leave if you're gonna pay? me
Correct, for some
6
people might
weeks?
want to use that leave if they're going to stay out longer than that paid time.
Okay, but that was my question. So normally if somebody goes out without incident for maternity leave, they go out for 12 weeks.
Mhm.
So are you saying that the first 6 weeks would be paid by the district, and then the employee, in your mind,
Can
can
choose.
choose to use their leave or not?
That's correct. So maybe, what's the word? Combination is not the right word.
Right.
Maybe
It's
it's,
an extension.
yeah, as an extension or adjacent to or something like that. But you have it correct, what you just said, I believe, right?
The first 6 weeks paid.
Right.
The next 6 weeks.
Right. Maybe they only
Their
take 6
choice.
weeks.
Which actually would be a benefit to bring the employee back sooner,
Maybe.
or the employee would want to come back sooner.
Okay, all right, got it. Um, So does this take the place of the child rearing leave without pay on,
So under B,
which is yes? Okay, so that's leave without pay.
so you just want to make sure there's no conflict here, there's no intention.
Correct, so I'm just gonna point that out on what kind of work.
Just like there's personal leave with pay, but then there's also personal leave without pay. Parental leave with pay, child rearing leave without pay.
And this also gives you, child rent gives you, it gives you a year as compared to 12.
But up here
We
you
do
said
have
all
a year.
employees shall be granted
Yeah.
parental leave not to exceed 1 year.
So does it nullify B3?
Well, it almost looks like they're kind of separate pieces, but, okay. I mean, the piece that you're focusing on under the paid parental leave is that first 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
That's correct.
I understand.
I don't, I would expect, I don't want to speak for you, but SJES is going to be your topic to discuss and the transfer. Well, what I'm saying is we don't have much, so you tell me how much time.
So we'll talk about both of them that you passed across.
Mhm.
I will probably be able to come back with transfer. I don't know that I can come back with virtual because I really need to cost some things out and try and find out based upon the number of courses, how much, because one of the things that I want to explain, and I would explain better in our counter, is virtual school at this point is self-sustaining. We expect them to, when we do St. John's Virtual's budget, it's completely different, just like FCTC, the two, it's completely different than a regular school budget because it is generating at a different rate.
Right.
It doesn't generate the full amount.
FTE, you say amount, I mean FTE.
Yes. And so we just need to make sure that we have a handle on what you're asking for before we agree to something. So it just, I want to make sure you know I'm doing this in good faith, but I don't know that without everything in front of me. And I don't want you sitting there while I crunch
Right,
numbers.
I'm not
waiting
pressuring
on
you for an
me.
answer.
No.
I'm just saying
No.
that we don't have, what we have to do at caucus is easy.
I know, yeah,
compared to what you have
so
tonight. You tell me.
give us, all right, let's do this. Give me 20 minutes, and then I'll text you and say, we need longer, or we
Okay,
don't need longer. Is that good?
okay.
Okay.
Our room's open.
Your
in
room
the
is
hallway.
open? Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it is. Okay, thank you.
All right. We off, Jesse?
Give me one second.